Thank you very much, Chairman Conley. I appreciate you holding this hearing. And Leader Hoyer, it's an honor to have you here in the GovOps Subcommittee. We welcome you here, and you're welcome here anytime. To each of our witnesses, likewise, we thank you for appearing today. I look forward to our discussion. From the beginning, as has already been recognized by my colleagues, Metro was envisioned to be different from other transit systems, due primarily because of its unique role in serving the nation's capital. Since 1960, Congress has passed legislation specific to the Washington Metro system to include legislation authorizing and appropriating grants for capital improvements. Frankly, these are grants that other transit systems do not get. Perhaps the main argument for such special treatment was that the Washington Metro was built to transport federal workers to and from agencies each and every day, and I think this is pretty evident just from the construction itself. Stations are located in the vicinity of federal office buildings, and the entire system is designed to bring people to and from the center of the city. But what happens when the federal workforce no longer goes to the workplace? As has already been mentioned, we're seeing that right now. With the Biden administration's lenient telework policies, federal workers won't be coming downtown anymore in anything like the numbers of the past, and nowhere near the amount needed to sustain the Metro system. Obviously, there's a lot to discuss here today. Everything from safety records to poor service to crime to now DC's vaccine mandates and its impact on ridership. I guess at the end of the day, there are two primary questions that come to my mind. First, as I've already referenced, if the federal workforce is no longer reliant on the Metro, why should we consider the Metro a national asset rather than just a local subway or transit system? Secondly, once COVID relief funding runs out, how is Metro going to survive? Obviously, there's a lot of other questions, but I think these are the two that jump off the page, if you will, at me primarily, that I would like for us to discuss and hopefully get some answers to. Overbearing COVID restrictions are not only dampening Metro ridership, but they're also damaging the city's economy and impacting the ability of Americans to visit the nation's capital. Vaccine passports are now required for anyone ages 12 and older to patronize restaurants, bars, gyms, and various other events here in D.C. This new and burdensome requirement means that local residents, school groups, and tourists who do not wish to disclose their vaccination status will no longer consider even coming to D.C., so there's not even the possibility of them riding Metro. Crime is another deterrent. Around the U.S., we are all watching. Violent crime rates are up, and Metro is no different. While the specific number of criminal incidents may have declined, that would be expected with the plummeting ridership. At the same time, however, the rate of crime has gone up, in fact, nearly doubling when considering the proportion of crimes occurring per rider. But again, what would we expect from a system that has decriminalized those who avoid buying a ticket? This is pretty stunning to me. I have a hard time understanding the pay if you want to pay type approach. Unfortunately, I could go on, and many of my colleagues have brought up other very valid points as well. There are far too many instances of waste, fraud, abuse, mismanagement with the Washington Metro system to list in this opening statement. But we owe it to the American people to fully understand what the taxpayers are paying for. If WMATA cannot sustain itself as a reliable, safe transit system, and if there are no services for a special purpose, it should no longer be given special treatment. In closing, again, I just want to say thank you once again to each of you for being here today, and we look forward to your testimony. With that, I yield back.
Question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Wiedefeld. I likewise congratulate you on your forthcoming retirement. Have you or anyone else assessed the upcoming impact, frankly, that the Biden administration's telework policy is going to have on Metro? How are you possibly going to fill the likely permanent decrease in ridership?
Yes, we have looked at it. Right now, as you mentioned, 40%, roughly pre-pandemic, 40% of our peak hour travel service was federal employees. And I think it's important to remember that it's all federal employees. So one of our biggest stops is the Pentagon, where we're moving roughly 15,000 passengers a day to the Pentagon. So it's yes, the role of the federal government in terms of people coming to work has gone down, but the people that still do use it are very important. So I think we still need to serve that, particularly in the military and the defense industry. I think that's very important. But it will have an impact going forward, and that's one of the reasons I mentioned earlier that the financial model will be under tremendous stress, because it's not only the federal workforce, but by and large, we have a system that charges more at peak period and charges for longer distance. And those are the trips that we see moving away from us. Now, will they come back? No one knows, of course. But will they come back to the scale that we were? I doubt it, to be frank. So as a region, we need to rethink what we want this system to be. But it does more than just serve those trips. It serves the entire community all day. So we've seen that during the pandemic. It plays such a central role in moving those people that make the system, make the community work. Right? So that is very valuable, and we need to support that. And there's tremendous opportunities going forward as the world evolves, as travel patterns evolve. We can adjust to that. We have to be creative. We need to think out of the box to do that. So I'm not pessimistic about it, but I think it's got to be realized, recognized, and addressed.
Well, if I may, let me go down that path with you just a little bit more. Obviously, there's a financial model that has to be adjusted here, but there is an operational model, likewise, that has to be adjusted. And more than just kind of 30,000-foot answers here, what kind of operational changes are going to need to take place to accommodate the decrease in ridership?
I think we will have to look at the system as a whole, meaning rail and bus. I think we'll have to look at the different travel headways, the distance between trains, between buses, where we serve those different markets. And so the long-distance trip may not be the primary trip any longer, but there may be much shorter trips that are made. The Silver Line is a good example of that, where you see the development pattern happening out there. We could see an increase, significant increase in the types of trips that are much shorter. They may not be coming to the core of the city, but they will be there. So how do we operationalize that? Maybe run different trains at different cycles to deal with that type of trip, and we can think of the system, the entire system that way. So again, I think we've got to keep a very open mind going forward to this and looking at all the tools. I also think there's opportunities to work closer with the new technologies, whether it's Uber, Lyft, or things like that, where we can't serve certain trips very well, but we can serve other trips better. Let us focus on the ones that we can do better, and let other entities do that, do the ones that we can't.
Okay. All right, Mr. Ditch, let me go to you real quickly. You mentioned in your testimony how there really isn't the density in this area to justify a system like Metro, and this certainly isn't getting any better with things like Dulles Airport and the population growth in areas like that. But the system is here. It is what it is. So what can we really do about it at this point?
First, when you're in a hole, stop digging. Past spending on transit infrastructure is not a justification for ignoring high costs and limited benefits or adding even more high-cost infrastructure on top of what we already have. The local governments should rein in the high cost of operating the transit system and consider fundamental changes such as privatizing existing assets or perhaps shifting resources away from rail service towards buses, since buses share road infrastructure and are thus more economical.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.